My presentation is about how hard it has been to be a veteran in receipt of services in Gainesville, Alachua County, Florida. I will name the supportive services and municipal agencies that have imposed their will upon me as employed and compelled by law to discharge their duties and concern to me. The situations I am about to discuss are my personal ones. I can only imagine someone lower functioning than myself and how those fellow veterans would fare when confronted with these situations. I am sure by virtue of personal knowledge that I am not alone. I possess a degree in human service, and I am a combat veteran, airborne cavalry scout, who was in the 82nd Airborne Division. I was honorably discharged. I am 100% disabled and unemployable, and have been diagnosed with bipolar I disorder, depression, and personality disorder not otherwise specified. All three are debilitating each in their own. I am in receipt of benefits from the United States Department of Veteran Affairs here in Gainesville, Florida. I have been enrolled in intensive case management and VA subsidized housing. It's called HUD-VASH since November 2014. Gainesville Housing Authority disperses HUD-VASH just like the Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program. Almost everything I am about to convey is objective and are recorded facts. My supportive services are certified licensed master of social work and are writers of effects to my case. What supportive documents, videos, etc. are a matter of principal record, are a matter of physical record at the agency of which I refer to. In plain talk, this is all written record. If I do discuss something that is subjective, I will allude to the fact as to where it derived from. I will start my narrative as to my plight. November 2014, I leased an apartment from Reed Real Estate. I went to Gainesville Housing Authority, where I turned in my lease and paperwork to be further processed by my caseworker, who made a statement at that time. He said, me and my kind, disabled vets, were taking Section 8 away from children and mothers. This was documented in my HUD-VASH social worker's notes. 1 year later, in 2015, the Gainesville Housing Authority sent me a check for over $800 because I was overpaying, by their directive, my portion of the rent. This is documented. My portion of the rent went from $280-ish to $160-ish. This was in the lease, an accounting error in the lease. Worst case, fraud, because they got caught. Nothing I am privy to reflects that anything else occurred. I make these statements to show cause of the position of the Gainesville Housing Authority. In July 2018, my bath and shower became inoperable. I immediately contacted Reed Properties. A week later, my HUD-VASH social worker visited. During my monthly visit, I stated what was wrong with my bath shower. The social worker instructed me to call Reed, so I put in another work order. The next day, maintenance showed up and then left. My social worker showed up for the next 30-day visit and told me to call Gainesville Housing Authority because my shower did not work. I did, and my bath was fixed. I do not know for sure, but I was told that the Gainesville Housing Authority withheld their portion of rent from Reed. I followed suit, but was made an appointment by Gainesville Housing Authority to Three Rivers Legal Services. Nothing maturated from this in my favor. Also, right after this event, Reed, without 24 hours notification at all, had our power cut off for the tree service in July. I stopped the power company to turn the power back on, and 2 other units, one was a HUD-VASH recipient just like me, until Reed's son got there and begged that it cost $5,000 for the tree service, and I should let them cut my power off. I conceded once again. I told this to the Gainesville Housing Authority. No Gainesville Housing Authority help on the matter, period. In October 2018, I had to recertify with the Gainesville Housing Authority annual lease renewal. While there, the Gainesville Housing Authority caseworker saw that there were discrepancies in what Reed declared was my portion of the rent. So the Gainesville Housing Authority social worker called Reed and spoke with their accountant, who instantly changed to the tone that they would not renew my lease mid-sentence after 5 minutes of continual dialogue on the phone, up to and including to the fact to prior mention of money. This all occurred. Housing and Urban Development has a Bill of Rights, and one of it is that there will be no retaliation for 6 months, not 6 minutes. My Gainesville Housing Authority caseworker did nothing, and so from October until December 2018, I looked high and low for a place to live. All entities concerned with my case explained I needed to look at the southwest area of Gainesville. Oh yes, the crime corridor of Gainesville, Florida. I eventually found Holly Heights. I knew it was called Cedar Ridge before. I knew it was the heart of the Gainesville crime corridor. I would say, based on a good day, the Alachua County Sheriff responds only twice a day. They always come in a tactical modality, M4 carbines, and posted up 8 to 20 deep. Every day. You will see what I mean eventually. While looking in Holly Heights, I noticed most of the units I saw were complete slums, but some were extensively remodeled. The remodeled ones accepted HUD-VASH. They knew all about it. I believe that there are 30 buildings with 8 apartments each, 4 are 1 bedroom, and 4 are 2 bedroom. The apartments I went to, the company said they owned 6 buildings. They said that their name was Banta Properties. They were from Hialeah, Florida area, South Florida, and they were Latin and spoke poor English, as I spoke in Spanish to them often. I leased up with Banta Properties and all that entails with Gainesville Housing Authority. Sometime later, I needed a mailbox, and so I was told by Banta Properties that I had to go to an office in the front of the housing complex to get one. When I approached an apartment converted to an office, the agent inside said I needed $20 to get a mailbox. I told her I just leased up with Banta Properties, and I am on Section 8, and you can't add any extra that was not in the lease. She said she was the sole leasing agent for Banta Properties. It seemed odd, but I have Gainesville Housing Authority and the Veterans Administration. I can't lose. The crime was terrible. My next door neighbor was the bootlegger. They lived 7 deep in a 2-bedroom apartment. She would take the 5 kids' food stamps to Sam's and buy snacks to sell. She sold single beers and cigarettes all day and all night for 18 months, at least 100 people a day. Her door was less than 1 foot from mine. My other neighbor on the other end sold pot My neighbors downstairs sold MDMA, which they call scram, and coke. My neighbor closest to me was a murderer who had pulled time. He was gang affiliated with Guns and Goons. They were my allies because everyone around me every day and night was the crime and the police. The first time my hood-bashed social worker came, she saw what it was like. I expected her to take action and help to get me out. I asked for help to get me out. So she didn't, and so on the next visit, I told her I do not consent. Get a doctor's request order signed by a judge when you come back. The situation changed approximately in June when we signed a letter of estoppel and the property was transferred from Banta properties to Dr. Hussein. All things remained the same until our trash of an 8-unit apartment building, overcrowded, did not empty the dumpster for over 30 days. I called the Alachua County Code Enforcement. First of all, the dumpster is only 10 feet away. Banta Properties that I dealt with was $9,000 behind to the refuge company. Eventually, it was dumped, and Dr. Hussein contracted with the Banta Properties up front. The Gainesville Housing Authority had my annual recertification. That was at month 10 of my 12-month lease. Nope, I signed a 10-month lease. I didn't cognitively. I have to conquer my mental health issues, so I can't react negatively like I feel. I've been set up because she said she did it, and I had already told her I wanted out, but because of Section 8 constraints, I had but no recourse but to sign another lease, this time 12 months. She says, and in depth in explaining to her, I am compelled to do what Gainesville Housing Authority will, but will be advised I want out. For safety and sanitary reasons, I told her I would do what I had to. Now, I had no intensive case management because I run them off, or what you call a HUD-based social worker. This is not good. Stop. I'm sorry, I had a moment there. I got a little frustrated. Now I had no intensive case manager or HUD-based social worker. Remember I had asked to get her to get a doctor's order signed by a judge? Well, I called her. Yes, I told her all, and she came. And we talked for a while. And when she left on the VA van with government plates front and back and a suicide mural on the back of this minivan, the Alachua County Sheriff's Office swooped onto her until it finally registered that she's the feds. That just sets the tone for my supportive housing situation. The next visit in March 2020, I had a new social worker, at which time I declared that I no longer could live there at Holly Heights and that I didn't feel safe and it was unsanitary and affecting my mental health. He said he would advocate to get me out. At that time, I had told him that I wanted him to go accompany me to Banta Properties, who at this time became our official leasing agent, and they said I owed approximately $100 in arrears, of which I didn't. And he worked that out because the VA knows these people. I state this claim as to the report that the VA HUD-based has with Banta. You will see why later. My social worker did state that Banta would have released me from my lease if I had been there 2 years. He said he would get a doctor's note. Remember, I am a mental health patient of theirs that the VA has diagnosed. That did not work either. Now that I have no resolve from the VA, I see it as a moment with no hope, and the real me takes over. I went straight to work, preparing for war. I'm going to tell you I lived at Holly Heights in the Gainesville crime corridor. At that time, my neighbor was on TV for getting beat with his own crutches. He was like over 60 years old. I have so many texts from this period forward to my social worker describing how groups of 10 or more people or less run in your house, just explaining the events as they happened. Through text to him, every new exceptional incident in my direct area were sent to him to show cause. As an airborne cavalry scout, I must know my enemy in all aspects. So I did. I learned my enemy. Who is Banta Properties? Well, from March onward, I searched. The Banta family, as to my understanding, from what I gathered from the internet, the Banta family owned Holly Heights since the 80s, and it was formerly named Cedar Ridge. They got sued for negligence from a death that resulted from a disgusting sludge-filled pool which killed a child. The incident and the intense crime were factors, I believe, to change their name to Holly Heights. Bradford Banta is a big-time South Florida real estate lawyer, the family of which who operates under ownership of several family members. They have several apartment complexes in South and Central Florida. One such apartment complex in Almont Springs, owned by Banta. Banta, as the owner of the apartment complex, sued his property insurance company. The court records reflect this. In summary, Banta only owned 4% of the property, and he had the other 96% ownership deeded to someone else, and he could not show cause for his desired remedy. In the case notes, the judge refers to Attorney Banta, the plaintiff, was, quote, nefarious, which means a misty hue, something that really isn't there, an apparition. What I see now is that Banta practiced shoddy law, real estate, and business practices. As to the Holly Heights property, Banta Properties, since their ownership of the property and running a business in Alachua County, Florida, since the wrongful death suit over 10 years ago and were sued in court as the owner, never have had a business license. This I found out from the Alachua County tax collector and property appraiser's office, two different offices. They went to court over a community pool, no business license, then or ever. Alachua County ceased business license only a couple of years ago. They didn't have one from the 80s till that period, and that's a record of fact. As for my further to show cause, Banta has had property insurance issues since, as I can tell, the Altamont Springs incident. Now, the first Banta I leased with lost their property insurance. They probably got caught not being real owners. Raphael and Lady Jane was their names. Then property insurance and other adjusters and salespeople came around. We as tenants were told to provide our own insurance. Then each tenant was required to sign a letter of estoppel. I did not at first because I informed the Gainesville Housing Authority and the VA HUD VASH. Remember, they have to make notes, and I did too. This was a sentinel event. One, my neighbors got thousands of dollars in arrears in their rent, and that wiped it all clean, that letter of estoppel. I took my social worker with my records when Banta said I owed them the money and the trash dumpster 10 feet from the buildings for 30 days. No more daily cleanup, no yard mow, no pest control. After the letter of estoppel, Dr. Hussein became property owner. When I did talk with the tax collector and the property appraiser, they could not discover the owner of the property or any of the 6 other buildings that they owned or supposedly owned. I never asked about the other approximate 30 buildings in Holly Heights that were supposedly owned by Banta Properties because it never went there. I didn't want to wear out my welcome with them. You'll see why later. The tax collector and property appraisers could not conclude to the ownership. I followed up twice more. I could procure a phone record to make it a verifiable fact, along with asking them yourself. And so I continued to prepare for war. You can capitulate an army, but if you don't have the attention, it could go unnoticed, like Bosnia and Serbia and Darfur. Those are good examples. I want my enemy to bear the maximum force of all my might. It's May. Banta is forcing evictions. I know because I see it. I call the governor's office, file a complaint as to the evictions during the moratorium. I also call my county commissioners and do the same. I make a sign that states, Banta Properties served illegal pandemic evictions. Lock them up and disbar Bradford Banta. So on May 26, 2020, I took my sign. I went to where I would get the attention to the problems I was experiencing. As I stood after just donning my sign at 10 a.m., a company leasing agent from Banta approached me. She called the Alachua County Sheriff's Office. Our contact was approximately 9:58. Alachua County Sheriff's Office was there by 10:10. The videos reflect this. I didn't ever intend to interact with law enforcement officers. I've only done that once in my life. They rolled up on me like 6 drill sergeants doing wall-to-wall counseling without the physical contact. They laughed and belittled me, asked me was I dyslexic because my sign didn't make sense. It was very humiliating. Eventually, I gained control, stated my mission and cause, just like I have done here. The video reflects 11:03 when I did break my phone out to record, so by the date time group, and 1 hour had already expired. And then I told them to make their presentation on how they were going to violate my rights. Then you see that one Rodriguez, the Gainesville Police Department officer, wanted to fight. You can see it. Threatened to arrest me too when I got ready to leave. That's whenever I cut the camera on again. You can see that video. Date time stamp also 11:10 when it was over because they were going to arrest me. I got on my hands and knees, hands behind my back, as to not be injured. Something happened and they stopped. I got my phone back out. I think that by me wearing my 82nd Airborne Division hat and I only identified as airborne, but I would not let them call me that on the camera, as not to shame the airborne. This is only another piece. When I went home, I saw George Floyd later that day. I was sickened by what could have been. I wanted war because of the problems, but I saw the light and ended the fight. But now the cat is out of the bag. I want to make a statement. Banta has to know the bootlegger that lives next door to me. She has to know the bootleg situation because it's like a store. There's hundreds of people coming in and out every day. The bootlegger started an episode with me. 99.9% of Holly Heights is made up of Black Americans. Well, the bootlegger stated her name is Angela Willis, and she is the leasing agent for Banta Properties. Had went to a Black Lives Matter rally, and she proceeded, the bootlegger, to chant at me and accuse me in a racial way for 30 minutes. Black Lives Matter. Trying to incite a crowd. That had to be Banta Properties. It was Banta Properties. I have paid this family's light bill, cable, and paid all of their delinquent auto registration and bought her license and got her oldest son enrolled in vocational rehabilitation and facilitated all the visits. He has narcolepsy. And now she is doing this. It has to be Banta Properties. At this time, I'm texting everything to my VA social worker. I conveyed all this to my VA social worker, and he informed me of some website. I got the text as evidence, and he gave me no resolve. And I have so many texts to my social worker about events such as this. This is the first time that he offered me some crisis intervention website. I don't know if any of my listeners have ever had that happen to them. Someone trying to incite a crowd to kill you as they shout racial slurs. Especially after you have done so much when you only have little. I've spent hundreds of dollars on it. I even had the key to her house when she had to take her daughter to basketball tournaments, take the dogs out. She trusted me for approximately 18 months, and then this. It had nothing to do with Black Lives Matter or anything that was going on. It was her being prompted by Banta to get at me. Oh, and this was also a spillover from the Friday prior, 5 June. The VA visited my house, to my apartment, and my neighbors and the bootlegger customers started an incident with them. I have the text from the VA social worker that reflects all this. From the 8th of June onwards, I did my best to get out with the VA and the Gainesville Housing Authority. No resolve. I had just really started getting cockroaches. My neighbors all had stage 3 infestations. I have records of that, of inside my neighbor's house. They had thousands of cockroaches, hundreds on each wall. I now was experiencing the same effects. I videoed my neighbor's apartment. It was terrible. Thousands, all 3 sizes. The HUD-VASH called Gainesville Housing Authority and scheduled a home inspection as per my complaints, and they validated it. I had not had bug treatment but twice in 18 months. Banta sent the pest control 1 hour before the Gainesville Housing Authority inspector arrived. He noted all this. I took video evidence and possess it now. I was referred to 3 Rivers Legal, but Gainesville Housing Authority never followed through, even when the VA HUD-VASH social worker collaboration. I have texts that reflect the VA HUD-VASH in contact with Gainesville Housing Authority on the matter with no resolve. Eventually, I came to the only option, which was just to put my stuff in storage and abandon my apartment. I informed the VA HUD-VASH social worker of my intent to leave by 20th of June, 2020, if they could not help me. Oh, they came 3 deep. HUD-VASH tried to negotiate to make me stay. I had a civilian witness to this. There was no situation, just no resolve. On the 20th of June, I was gone. I have a friend who was a scout with me in my platoon in the 82nd Airborne Division, so I stayed with him. Now the HUD-VASH and Gainesville housing workers are supposed to be doing something to get me rehoused. On the 30th of June, 2020, with no evidence of anything being done, I put the Gainesville Housing Authority, HUD-VASH, on notice and informed them I felt they were not meeting my needs and or best practices, and it was a quality of care issue, and I stated I would not wipe my ass with their degrees. Tried to negotiate to make me stay. I had a civilian witness to this. There was no situation, just no resolve. On the 20th of June, I was gone. I have a friend who was a scout with me in my platoon in the 82nd Airborne Division, so I stayed with him. Now the HUD-VASH and Gainesville housing workers are supposed to be doing something to get me rehoused. On the 30th of June, 2020, with no evidence of anything being done, I put the Gainesville Housing Authority, HUD-VASH, on notice and informed them I felt they were not meeting my needs